Hey everyone, my name is Chris Hass. I'm a second and third grade teacher in Richmond School District 2 and a Midlands area rep for SC for Ed. And we are here as part of our larger project to talk about different people running for Senate and House this year in hopes that as people go out to make votes, they don't just vote by party, but instead they vote based on issues that are important to them. And we want to focus a lot on education. So I'm here with Katrina Shealy, and I'm going to start just by giving you an opportunity maybe to talk a little bit about yourself, talk about your platform, and maybe your experiences this past term in the Senate.
Okay, thanks, Chris. As you said, I'm Katrina Shealy, and I currently represent South Carolina Senate District 23, and that's in Lexington County. And first of all, I want to thank SC for Ed for the opportunity for this interview today. A few things, I'll tell you a few things about me. I grew up in Lexington County, lived here all my life. I graduated from Batesburg-Leesville High School. I sent all my children to public school, all one of them. Right now she's a teacher in a public high school in Lexington County. She teaches high school at Gilbert. And my grandchildren go to Gilbert, in the Gilbert school system. I have a 12-year-old grandson and a 16-year-old grandson, and they all wish that things would get back to normal. They love baseball and football, so they're all excited about sports and getting back to school this year. So I have a very strong interest in the public education system. My daughter's been teaching for 23 years, matter of fact. I also have a strong interest in families and children. I'm the chairman of the Family and Veteran Services Committee in the Senate now. So I've worked on issues from, women's issues and children's issues, domestic violence and foster care and, all the issues dealing with children. But I also, one of the most important issues dealing with our children is education. So I think that's a very important topic for us to talk about. And I'm looking forward to talking with you today about that.
So my first question is, when you look at the state of public education in South Carolina right now, what are some things that stand out to you? What feels important and immediate to you?
Well, that's a good question. And first, we're very fortunate in South Carolina that we have so many good teachers. We have teachers that, new teachers. We have teachers that have been there a long time. I just told you my daughter's been teaching for 23 years, and I feel like she's just a child. So it's, how did this happen? How did I get a daughter that's been teaching for 23 years? But that being said, we have a huge disparity in our school districts. We have some school districts that it's like going to a college campus. Right here in Lexington County, we have some school districts that are huge and they have everything you could possibly want. They have all the bells and whistles. And then you go to other parts of the state of South Carolina, and they are teaching out of school buildings that are older than where I graduated from high school from. And I just tell you how long my daughter's been teaching school. So it was a long time ago when I graduated from high school. And they don't have all the bells and they probably don't have any whistles. So, that's a serious problem here in South Carolina that we need to work with. We need to take into consideration those issues. And I think that's a serious concern in our education in South Carolina. We have the teachers, we have all the things we should have, but we don't take care of it in every area. So I think when I look at education, public education across the state of South Carolina, there is such a huge gap from one area to the other. And I think that that's something we seriously need to work on in South Carolina, is filling that gap so that every student in South Carolina has the same opportunities.
So when we look ahead to the 2021 legislative session that will begin in January, what do you think should be our top priority? What's something that we can accomplish that would be meaningful right away?
Well, we talked about this a lot last year, and unfortunately, our session ended early and we didn't get to complete our journey last year. But when we go back in 2021, we need to go back to education. Some of the things that teachers want, and, we worked on a lot of these issues, but class sizes for teachers, this is a big issue for teachers. And first of all, I know that hopefully we'll have this problem solved when we go back. You know, right now we're in the midst of this pandemic, and hopefully we're going to have that solved maybe before people are even watching this video. But we want to go back to school, and we want to go back safely. We want our teachers and our students to be safe, but we do want to go back to school. I believe students need to see their teachers. I think teachers want to see their students. I think, you know, when teachers go into a profession like teaching, they do it because they love it. I don't think that they don't do it for the money, and they don't do it, you know, for any other reason but for the love of teaching. You got to love it to do it. But I think we need to listen to teachers. I think we need to talk about reducing class sizes. We need to give control of that classroom back over to the teachers. We don't need to tell teachers how to teach. You know, my daughter talks about it all the time. You know, they have to do so much paperwork that they don't get to teach. So I see it from that side. I hear what she's telling me. Safety in the classrooms. We need to protect our teachers. You know, when the kids have control and they get to tell the teachers what to do, and the teachers can't tell the kids what to do, I think that's an issue. You know, school funding formulas, we have to work on that. We seriously have to work on our school funding formulas. If you look, we have federal money, we have state money, we have district money, but we have to work on that, and we have to make it fair across the board. And we haven't. We never seem to get that far. You know, I'm not on the education committee. I'm not on finance right now. Next year, hopefully I'll be on finance. If I'm reelected, I'll be on finance next year. You know, that's a seniority thing. And fortunately, you know, next year, if I'm reelected, I will have been there long enough, I'll be on finance. So, you know, we can work on those issues together. But I think those are some of the issues that we need to work on in 21, gosh, this year. I think 2020 has just been a non-year. So I kind of miss that year.
So I worded that very carefully, talking about the 2021 session, because you all are still awaiting session for this year as well.
We go back in September, so to work on the budget. So hopefully, you know, there's still some hope out there for 2020.
Right. So my third question speaks a little bit to one of the problems that our state has, and you talked about class sizes. But each year when we start the school year, a lot of times we have more than 1,000 vacancies that are unfilled because we don't have enough teachers. Our ability to fill those roles has become more and more challenging, and state universities have talked about seeing as much as a 30% reduction in the number of students who do go into education. So teacher recruitment, teacher retention, you mentioned paperwork and autonomy in the classroom and making professional decisions as part of it. But teacher pay and funding has been a part of it too, in that personally in my school, we don't even have a full-time nurse at my school, which seems appalling to me, especially given the current circumstances. So where do you stand in terms of school funding and what that looks like, or what it should look like, and what we might be able to do to make that work? Because we don't want to overburden taxpayers, but we also want to invest in our kids and our future as well. What are your thoughts on funding?
I think number one, we've made that funding formula so complicated that nobody understands it. I think we need to simplify the funding formula for schools across the state. You know, it's like I said earlier, the disparity between, you know, students in Colleton County and students in Lexington County, but the money that the state sends to Colleton County is, I think, $21,000 compared to what Richland County might. I'd have to look at the numbers. I'm just throwing numbers out there. But Lexington County might get 12 and Colleton County might get 21. But it's because of what the county can afford to give, or what the municipality can afford to give. So I think that we all need to work together and look at those formulas and make those formulas simple, so we can make sure that teachers are taken care of, and that, you know, the money needs to go to the teachers in the classrooms. You know, we have a lot of overhead there, and that's coming through the districts. You know, we're not looking at that thing quite the way we should. If you look at how some of these districts are set up, we have a lot of overhead in some of these districts, and that's not set up by the state. That's set up by the school districts and the school boards, and we don't always look at it that way. We think the state decides where that money goes once it gets there, but that's not necessarily what happens. Once we send it to the district, then the school boards and the district administration then decides, maybe we have too many people in the district offices sometimes. We should give that money to the teachers. And we do need a school nurse in every school. And I think you're going to see more of that this year. I think every school will have a school nurse. If we can find enough nurses, with the shortage of nurses in the hospitals, there could be a problem with that.
So my last question is going to speak to assessment, to testing. So a lot of times when this discussion comes up, sometimes people, they pose it as though teachers are against testing and assessment, which everything we do is based on testing and assessment. That's how we know how to inform our practices, how to reach each student. We are all in favor of assessment. A lot of times the concern that comes out is there's so much weight put on a single test that happens in May that it affects everything that happens the 9 months before that. And we've created a testing culture that has it has sucked the joy of learning and the joy of teaching from so many. So what do you think we could do at the state level to try to address that in some way so that teachers are still getting the information they need and the state's still getting the information they need, but we can do it in a way that maybe seems a little more conducive to authentic learning versus learning to achieve on one single test?
I think we proved a little bit of that this year by finding out we don't have to have all those tests. But what we need to be more concerned about are our children getting the best education possible. If we're graduating more students at a higher rate with less dropout levels, and we have more students going to 4-year and 2-year colleges, and then that should be our measure. We don't need to have a bunch of tests. Our measure should be how many students are graduating, how many students are going to college. We don't need to have 1,000 tests to prove that we're accountable. We talk about the accountability system. Our accountability should be how many children are graduating every year. We have dropout levels because why? If our students are graduating and we have good students and they're moving forward, that's showing that teachers are accountable. We don't need all these tests. We proved it this year. We don't need them. So now that we've proved that, we don't need to bring them back. Now that we've done that, we can move forward. We can probably get rid of some more.
So those are all my questions. Do you have any final words that you would like to share with potential voters who will be going out in November to cast their votes?
My final word would be to say that, I think I'm looking forward to teachers working together, and let's work closer with the legislature. I know teachers have felt like they've been left out. I was one of those people that voted to get rid of the EOC because I think we don't have the right people represented on the EOC. I think that we need to have more teachers' voices. I set up a Facebook page just so teachers could talk when we were having the debate, and everybody was saying, well, we took a poll. Well, who's in that poll? We're just calling random people. Well, I wanted teachers' voices. And when I would say, well, I got 500 people on my Facebook poll, and they said, well, we took a poll and we had 200 voices. Well, they were random voices. I wanted to hear what real teachers had to say. So I still, they may not always agree with me, and I may not always agree with them, but I still want to hear what teachers have to say. And I'll always want to hear what they have to say. And I think that that's what we need to do. We need to listen. And my door is always open to hear what teachers have to say, whether they don't have to be in my district. Everybody on my Facebook page is not on my district, and sometimes they get really angry at me, and that's all right. We pound it out and we talk about it, but that's what we're here for. I think every legislator should have that open door and listen to every teacher and every student and whoever wants to talk to them. So I hope that people will continue to, throw it at me, and let's throw it back, and we'll talk about it. So, I would like to give out my email if anybody wants to email me, if that's okay. It's Katrina Shealy at scsenate.gov. And the phone number at my office is 803-212. I have to look sometimes because it changes. 212-6320. So if anybody wants to call my office or email me, I'd love to hear from them. And, let's work together in this next year and see if we can't do something better for our teachers and our students and make education better in South Carolina.
Okay. Thank you so much for spending time with us this evening.
Oh, I enjoyed it. And like I said, anytime y'all need anything, give me a call.